Now to someone in the news. Former Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman spent months working inside the committee. He has a new book, The Breach, out now, a behind-the-scenes look at this investigation and the data that they sifted. The former congressman joins me now. Thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Ari.
Let's start with the substance.
Yes.
Then we'll get to the sniping later.
Yeah,
how's that sound?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I've been dealing with that backroom Washington stuff for a few days.
You're mapping this thing that we all remember day of was called a riot, Jan 6, single-day crime spree. You're mapping, reading from the book, the main link map you call the monster. You had 4 people connected to all 6 clusters of this, and they were in contact with the militias at the highest levels of Trump's circle, the touch points, Gracia, Jones, Davis, Roger Stone, who's back in the news today.
Yeah.
What was the breakthrough in your investigative work to understand this was really planned with this many tentacles?
Breakthrough, the first thing was the call detail records. You know, you have to have those millions of lines of data and enough data to ascertain what's happening. And, you know, I don't want to get too crazy, you know, about using, I'm going to just like the book, you know, I try to just say it in a very narrative form. You have these groups, you know, and you do something called frequency analysis, or the amount of calls that you see. And the first thing that we saw when we started getting all the call detail records is how sort of centralized Tarrio was, Enrique Tarrio. Mm-hmm. So then what you do, if you can't get call detail records, say somebody like Roger Stone, you can still run their number against the call detail records they have. So, and the last thing, the third thing, is that sometimes the assistants for Stone or for Flynn or for Steve Bannon, who you were just talking about, or for Alex Jones, they might not be practicing the same operational security. Oh, my goodness. All of a sudden, once you get those call detail records, you're seeing these centers of gravity, people that are being called more than most. And at that point, it's an aha moment, because if you've been working in terrorism like
right. So who was the most central of those spokes?
The central with the CDRs that we had, and this person who seemed to talk to the most people was Tarrio. But the person who seemed to really be able to sort of sprinkle across things, even without his call detail records and the other evidence we saw, are people like Roger Stone.
Yeah.
Or the assistants for those individuals I was talking about.
And that's striking because Stone has proved his loyalty. He stood tall, as they put it, to the feds. He got his Trump pardon. Yes. So he's someone who has known Trump forever, and you're saying he's a spoke. What about Mark Meadows? Walk us through that.
Yeah, Mark Meadows, when you see the text messages, what's interesting is there's so many things in the book about this that are striking and people should be looking at. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about is right now, you know, looking at what reporters are doing, there's 2 things happening out there. You know, we talked about the sniping, but there's actually real reporters looking at the evidence in the book. And so when you look at Mark Meadows, I think the things people should be looking at right now is how many congressmen and senators were actually involved. It's amazing. It's much more than...
How many?
It's probably close to 40, right, that actually were sending texts back and forth.
Who were planning to, in their plan, hijack this ceremony on the 6th to create enough mayhem to say that the president-elect had not been certified?
It's worse and better than that. What I would tell you is that they were sending their ideas from the crazy fever swamps of QAnon rooms, right, about anything from Italygate to this bizarre thing that active members were sending about Romania. And
how many knew that the plan was to storm the Capitol?
I don't know if they knew the plan was to storm the Capitol, but if Mark Meadows is talking to every single section of what's happening from the political side, the legal side, right, and the cyber side. I mean,
who's the worst person, in your view, criminally, that Meadows is talking to? He doesn't talk directly to Tarrio.
He doesn't talk directly to Stone. You know, as we see, I need, you know, those call detail records. But the person that should strike everybody might not be a name that you hear most. And I don't know if it's criminally, but somebody who's very interesting is Phil Waldron. And I think, you know, people need to look at those, you know, lower level type of text messages that are happening. But if you're looking at the text,
he's a military vet who was trying to push these ideas about everything from martial law to again, hijacking the 6th. Another name that came up, Dan Scavino, is one of the only people, along with Meadows, who defied the committee and did not get indicted. So in fairness to him, I always say, DOJ lands, I'm going to tell the viewers. So in fairness to him, the DOJ didn't see a criminal case there. Yep. But we do know that Mr. Scavino took tremendous risks to avoid cooperating. Do you have any idea why? You were on the inside.
Well, I could tell you this. I might not know why. I think comms maybe is the most important thing when you're talking about how to actually, I would say, coordinate something. And if you look at Trump, you know, QAnon troll farms really dictated White House policy. And we can prove that. That's pretty easy, right? That QAnon was really in his ear. I mean, that's just the way he acts. But, you know,
do you think Scavino knew the plan was to storm the Capitol?
I think Scavino knew, based that he ran the comms, that there certainly were threats, or there certainly was an issue with some of the...
Because that's a big deal. We're moving fast here, but that's a big deal because you have other aides like Navarro and Meadows who claim they wanted to go along with some stuff that looks illegal, but not the violence. So Navarro says we wanted to overthrow the election. That's still probably illegal, depending on how you do it. Last time I checked, you don't need a law degree for that.
No,
but
no, you don't.
He has said in public, no violence. Then you have someone like Scavino, who has been really hiding out, but was on all the social accounts and dealing with Trump. So he's dealing with some of these unsavory characters who are pushing plans to get the people there armed. Why do they need to be armed unless they're going to go to battle?
That's why the committee went for Scavino's call records and he fought them. I mean, that's again, and not back to the book, is that is some of the issues that the committee doesn't have warrant authority. They only have subpoena authority. And, that's one of the real challenges the committee had, even with the thousands of people, is that there's certain pieces of data they just couldn't get. And we needed to use alternate means and fuse some of that data, in order to find out what these individuals were doing.
Do you think most of the story is now out, or the committee has a lot left to tell us?
I think we all have a lot left. I think the committee's done an incredible job with what they're allowed to do, with the amazing work and the investigative teams they have. But the data, we need another year to year and a half with the data. I mean, when you're talking about this many individuals, when you're talking about frequency analysis, when you're talking about command and control networks, we need more time with the data. And again, it's just amazing to me that what we have seen in the data, everything from, with the text messages to Meadows, from Jim Jordan, trying to lead the efforts to overturn the election from CPI, which is pretty amazing, right? When you're looking at somebody like Bianca Gracia, right, who also had calls back and forth from the White House. When you have Kelly Sorrell, NBC News, right? Kelly Sorrell, again, found out that Kelly Sorrell was texting a White House aide and the son of Rudy Giuliani. So you shake that data tree and you get an Andrew Giuliani. That's pretty cool. And that was just yesterday or today.
Right. So that goes to all the work. We're running out of time. The committee has basically said, hey, thanks for your service, but you're kind of out of pocket here.
Yeah.
You have every right to publish as reporters. We want to get all the info we can. But what contributed to your idea to put this out now, moving a little bit ahead of them, doing the book and breaking ties with the committee? Where are you at with that? And do they have a point that, as an employee, you kind of went sideways? They say even that you violated some of your employment agreement.
I'm an employee of the American people. I'm a former congressman and former counterterrorism analyst. And the data belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the committee. It doesn't belong to me.
I mean, I appreciate you being here. I would fact check that and say, I'm not sure the American people have hired you recently. You were a congressman at one point. But here they're saying that you signed agreements to be confidential through the end and that you're not doing that. Your response to that is?
Did not sign any agreements to be confidential to the end. No NDAs, no employee agreements. I actually, when I came onto the committee, was as actually underneath the threshold where I could still consult to do my private businesses. So that's a bit of a misnomer, whoever's leaking there. And that's why I try not to get into this weird D.C. backroom stuff, because this book, I would say, and I think that's why you're seeing a lessening of this right now. This supports the committee. But the American people need to know the data. My job is the American people.
Yeah, I think, and from our estimation, there's overlapping commonality here, because the committee's work thus far with the hearings, and we'll see the report, and your book are talking about the problems. Last question, though, because, as I said, we would save the sniping for last. Good to my word. What grade, even with this little interaction you're having, whatever you want to call it, what grade do you give the committee's investigative performance thus far?
Well, with what they could do with the data they have and the authorities they have, I would give them an A-. And I would think, though, to get to an A+, I think we need to actually increase investments in cyber and data analysis. And just like you saw right now, those little pieces of data are very important. And I'm going to leave it with this. 9 seconds is an eternity to a counterterrorism analyst. And when you see people going to encrypted apps on text messages, when you see what's happening, I've only seen that at other times, right? And that's when I was doing counterterrorism.
Very, very interesting stuff. We want to get all perspectives. Denver Riggleman, who's been on the inside. Thank you, sir. Coming up, we have an update on the hurricane. Stay with us.